Father Simon, Sister Bobby, Brother Matt, I appeal to your good humanity for mercy and forgiveness for a most heinous act committed against nature, against my son and the Girl Guide Association. We begin this tale of woe in one of the harshest winters we have ever faced, made harsher in the old village hall where my daughter's brownie meeting was taking place on this fateful Thursday night in January. Expecting only to have to pick up my two daughters, I was surprised to discover a third companion, and that is a baby birch tree. Yes, take me to Birch. See, that's where it was. Yes. That's where it came from. Yeah. As some of you may know, brownies are famous for skills and talents that they learn through working hard and are rewarded with their badges. This particular winter, the brownies had decided to take on the challenge of the gardening badge by purchasing 3 newly planted birch seeds. The seeds were sent home with each brownie 3 at a time in the hopes that they would learn the values of gardening and helping the trees to grow. It was at this point I knew that really it could only end badly. When I say a baby birch tree, you must understand that this specimen resembled a stick more than a tree. Short, pin-thin, about a branch or even a leaf, without a branch, without a leaf to accessorise this 20-centimetre twig. But I was determined. Placing the plant outside of the reach of my ravenous Labrador, I protected and nurtured the plant with the help of my 2 daughters, 8 and 10 respectively, and my 6-year-old son. The birch was watered every day and given more sunlight than it could ever have hoped for, and I'm sure it would have thrived if not for the terrible tragedy that struck us within those 7 days. February arrived and a flurry of snow, beautiful and angelic enough for the schools in the surrounding area to liberate their students for the day, crying, "Go, be free, enjoy the winter weather in the short time that you can," like no school ever said ever. The 3 children and I followed these demands and enjoyed a snow day at home. Between the gallons of hot chocolate they were consuming and after the last episode of Looney Tunes that morning, my children decided to make the most of the weather and build a snowman to commemorate this day. I fetched them a carrot for the nose and left them to it, enjoying the warmth of the kitchen as I prepared their lunches until they fetched me to see the finished piece of art. At this point, I wish I hadn't seen The Snowman, the new Michael Fassbender horror movie, where the snowman indicates very bad things are going to happen. But anyway, it's not that bad. And what an art piece this was. A pebble-engraved face with a beautiful carrot nose, stone buttons lined up perfectly on the belly, and 2 arms outstretched for a hug. I spent time admiring the work before I discovered a sight even that filled me full of dread. The birch was missing from its pot. Within an instant, my son admitted that given the plant resembling a stick more than a tree, he instinctively, believing it was a twig, stole it for an arm on the snowman. I, the calm, comforting, diplomatic presence that I am, completely lost the plot. After what one might class as a rampage against my 3 children, I was forced to squash the idea of placing what was left of the tree back into the pot and hope nobody would notice. Instead, I was straight on the phone to my husband, explaining the situation, and we trawled for hours upon hours around the local plant nurseries to find a suitable replacement so we could return to brownies with our heads held high and with our secret well kept. Eventually, we found it, the magnificent beauty that we could return that Thursday as our birch, at least 1 metre high, maybe nearly 2.
What?
Covered in branches, covered in leaves, as though plucked from the Garden of Eden itself, and within our price range.
All of that.
By this point, my children and I had all recovered from the standoff of that afternoon, and my son was back watching Looney Tunes as soon as we got home. He didn't care. That Thursday, my daughters stood tall as we entered the room in triumph, presenting to the school our new baby Birch, adopted if you will, and our smiles said one thing. They said, "Look at what we have done with our tree. Aren't we good and faithful stewards of this bountiful earth? If only all of you could have been as green-fingered and fertile as us."
Yeah.
Losers. I've added the losers. Well, it's fair to say it didn't go down exactly as I'd hoped. We were met with frowns from the leaders and tears from the other brownies who had taken home trees and returned with skinny little sticks that they had left with. Sad, I know. In trying to merely make ourselves look competent, we had hopelessly overshot and shown up everybody else, prompting suspicion, scorn, jealousy, and hatred in equal measure, all for the sake of a little stick. I therefore need the forgiveness, Father Simon, from my son, who I may have scared slightly in the heat of the moment. the Girl Guide Association, whom we cheated out of a badge, the other brownies who were made to feel inferior as their birches hadn't seemingly grown as much, like 6 times the size, and to every plant that has ever crossed the threshold of my house. This is a classic parenting thing where you try and compensate for things that have naturally gone wrong, that your kids have come up with, by buying something just to impress. Because who could face the humiliation of a tiny Birch? Sister Bobby, what do you make of all that then?
Well, the thing is, if you were replacing like with like, it would have been fine, obviously, to kind of fix the situation. I understand that, but you didn't. You did basically just show off. And I know that wasn't your intention.
Birch.
That wasn't your intention. It wasn't necessary. Why didn't even you just cut it down a bit and go, okay, well, ours is slightly thicker, but it's still only kind of, 6 inches big. So I think on this case, I cannot forgive Mrs. Doubtflower.
Normally these confessions are about goldfish, or in some extreme cases, cats, where, bad things have happened, and so while the owners have been away, so they tried to replace. I don't think we've had a Birch that's needed to be replaced, but it doesn't sound as though the new Birch resembled the old Birch in any way, shape or form. What do you make of that, Nigel?
Apologies if I sound stupid, but just
it's
wondering...
never troubled you before.
Thank you for that. Walked straight into that one. But I'm wondering, how long was the period between this? They used the twig initially before they actually realised that they'd taken one of the sacred twigs?
I think it's the holidays.
Okay, yeah, so they had to... they couldn't have used it again. Yeah, but I think the son nailed it when he said he didn't care. He didn't care, and the girls weren't even allowed to care one way or the other. They cheated. Mrs. Doubtflower, you cheated big time. You ain't forgiven on this occasion.
It's not looking very good for Mrs. Doubtflower, but let's check in with Matthew.
What I would say is what this confession has over the Michael Fassbender movie, The Snowman, is at least the plot here made sense.
Oh, yes.
Because, that one, all over the shop. Yes, the brownies were complicit in this, weren't they? They went along with it. Oh, yes, look at the Birch. Even though they knew that this other tree had been used, the branch had been used for the snowman, and they'd gone in with it. So badge of cheating there for the
Is there
for
a
the
cheating
brownies.
badge?
I'm sure there's a badge for cheating.
A Birch of the poison mind.
Yes, very good. So yes, I am not going to forgive.